Hello, I am Reverend Oretha D. Weeks, the daughter of Jefferson I.A. Weeks, who was the son of J.I.A. Weeks, whose parents came on the court. My father was a mama's boy. He was always with his mother, and that's how he learned to make a lot of the dishes that his mother used to make. And he and his father, from the stories I was told by him, they did not get along well. Because of that, he ran away from home early. That's why he did not get the kind of education his other siblings got, because he ran away from home. And but his mother was always finding him, taking food to him and all of that. And I remember my father telling me that when he ran away from home, when he finally left and went to Kakata, he didn't come back till his mother passed. No, I think his mother was sick when they sent for him, but by the time he got there, his mother had passed. And that's why he had that strong connection, with anyone. When it came to mother business, it really, he had a soft spot about that, because he was truly a mama's boy. Father started his transportation business when he ran away from home. When he went to Kakata, he started a transportation business. He started the first car he got, according to him, he used it as taxi, transporting people from Kakata to Monrovia and things like that. And then later on, he got a farm that he used to get his produce and sell from the farm into Kakata's market into Monrovia. But he kept the transportation business, because even growing up, I knew he always had a taxi. Either he would drive the car on, and then eventually he had more than one, and so he had drivers to drive the taxi. That was his main thing. And then he worked as at the University of Liberia as the I've forgotten the role he worked at, but he worked at the University of Liberia at one time. I think GSA, General Service Director or so. And then he also worked at Oreo Enterprise, but his main source of income was his transportation business. When you greeted him and you asked him how he was doing, he would always say, "Not as good as you." That was his number one thing. And he also would say, like, if you bump your head, he will also say, and you say, "Oh, it hurts." He will say, "Oh, I'm sorry, but if you did that to your own hair, if I lend you mine, what will you do with it?" And when he those kinds of things. And sometimes when you are ill, that was another thing he always said. Sickness comes on horseback and it leaves on turtleback. So the way the sickness came, you don't expect it to go away right away. It takes time. The Weeks family reunion, I always look forward to that. It was a time, it is always a time of family getting together, loving on one another, eating a lot, and just being yourself, remembering those days when we were growing up, and either we met at one of our uncle's houses and we have fun together. So we always look forward to being together as a family, and we kept certain routine going, like the table tennis tournament, where if not all of my cousins that know how to play today, then most of them learn from Uncle James' house. So we kept that going. Every Weeks family reunion, there's always a table tennis tournament. And that tournament is named in memory of J. Milton Weeks Sr. And also, we also have the banquet. We don't stop that banquet. We always do that banquet, or you call it dinner and ball, because that's the time that we honor those that needs to be honored. We remember those that needs to be remembered, and then we share our talents. Whether you're young or you old, we share our talents and just have fun, good old family fun time. Memorial United Methodist Church, growing up, we always participated in Easter Sunday program where we had to say recitation or sing or do something. And Children's Day, we had to do the same thing. Mother's Day, Father's Day, you know, we always have to do something. And also during Easter and Children's Day, they always had competition. They would give us envelopes, and you had to, for fundraiser, and you had to take your envelopes. And if being really a family church, you end up taking your envelopes or your uncles and your cousins right in the church to put money in your envelope. So when it's offering time on that particular Sunday, you will give it. And most time the person with the highest gets a prize. So, you know, those were the things. But really, what I like the most is that Reese Memorial United Methodist Church helped me to grow in the United Methodist Church, because from being involved in Sunday school and children's Day services and things like that, I got involved on the district level. So as a youth, I was involved in the St. Paul River District Youth, and I went up to the Conference United Methodist Youth Fellowship. So, and that helped me, that has helped me and given me the foundation in growing in the church and in the Word of God to where I'm in today. I remember as a little girl, we living in Monrovia, we went Crozierville every Sunday for church. But when we came back to Monrovia, my neighbors, that most of them were underprivileged children, they were living in zinc shacks like that. But I would invite them on our porch. But before I did, I would do a package of rice and fish, put it in a bag, and I would call them on the porch and start to remember what was taught either in Sunday school or what the pastor preached. And I would start to say those same things to them and pray with them. And at the end, I would give them each a bag. But then as time went on, when anybody asked me what you want to be when you grow up, I would always tell them a nurse, because my mother was a midwife. I would say a nurse. But my father would always try to put fear in me. And even though I would say a nurse, I couldn't stand seeing someone cut and see anyone's blood or even my own blood. So sometimes when I'm just sitting, my father would say, "Oh, look, you're bleeding," and I would start to scream. And so, but I don't know what happened really, but I know when my last year, when I was in high school, all of a sudden, I just had that desire to be a pastor. And I remember one day somebody asking me, what do you want to be when you finish with high school? And I said, I want to be a pastor. And that was it. I remember when I told my mother, she said she always knew that. But I just came up with that. And my father tried hard to discourage me. He kept telling me, you can't make a good living being a pastor. Pastors are poor. And I kept telling him, that's where God is calling me. and he had my uncle because my grandfather was a pastor. My had an Uncle Monroe was a pastor, and he had Uncle Monroe come to talk to me when I said I was going to seminary. My father said, if you don't go to seminary, you go to LU, I will pay your school fees to LU, and when you graduate, I will send you to the US to do your master's. And I told him, no, I didn't want to go to LU. I wanted to go to seminary. So he called my uncle to come and talk to me. I remember Uncle Monroe coming to talk to me so that I would change my mind and not want to go into seminary. And I said to him, I said, Uncle Monroe, you a pastor? I want to be a pastor, so what's wrong with it? And he said to me, I remember him telling me, there's no money in being a pastor. And then I said, well, but I'm not going into it because I think there's money. I'm going into it because I feel in my heart that that's where God wants me to be. And that's how I enter ministry. My father was the one that really inspired me. Family first. And next to that is honesty and hard work. And how to treat others. But my number one thing I learned is family first. I think once I think the best way my father would want to be remembered is seeing the family together and just loving and being there for each other. Because that was his thing. No matter what it was, he would do anything for his family, especially his siblings. My father died 2001, May 28, in Detroit, Michigan. I know what got to him the most about being here was the way the children in America talk back to the elders. He could not get over that. I remember because he came way before I came. And when I came, he wasn't doing too well. But I remember him, he always, in fact, he went and talked to his pastor one day and said, all these sermons you're preaching, they're good, but you need to preach to these people to know how to train as children. And that would get to him. So I would tell him, Papa, this is a whole different environment. That's not the way you did things back then. That's not how they do it here. He said, but these children are too rude. That really bothered him. And with that, he did not like. I remember my auntie Edith who lived in Paris, Edith Weeks. I remember when she used to come for vacation to Liberia. And for the most part that I can remember, when she came to Liberia, she would be at Uncle James' house. But before she went back, I remember her, having this time with her nieces and her nephew, preparing things, food or baking something for us. I remember that. My favorite Liberian food is tabagi. Yeah, that's my favorite Liberian food. Okay. Any kind of tabagi is my favorite. My happiest memory of my father was traveling with him. That was my happiest memory, just being in the car with him, going places. Most of the time it was either going to his family in Kakata or going to one family or another place. And I enjoyed those times because I would always ask him to tell me how we were related. And he would hesitate and just say, if I say this, your cousin, this, that's your cousin, this. But I would torment him and he would finally explain to me. And he'll go down the line how this person is related. So I enjoy those times with him. And my happiest, and those were my happiest memory in Liberia as a whole, was just really spending time together as family. Those family time where, you know, now I look back and I say, I sometimes feel so sad for the generation in Liberia now that they don't get to enjoy what we enjoyed. Because when growing up, we lived in Monrovia, yes, but when we went to Crozierville, after church, we went pretty much from house to house. We went from house to house, and by the time we got back home, it was evening time, you know? And those were good times, and those times kept the family together. And I think my uncle, my father and his siblings, they did well to make sure that their children, you know, was tight as they were tight. I do miss being in Crozierville, and I don't know if we ever get back to that place to have the Crozierville that we knew, but I miss that. And I just want to say it's important for us as family, for the younger ones, and for we that are around now, it's important that we stay together, we continue to love one another, stay in touch. The way things going now, even though we're living far apart, but at least be able to call one another every now and then, text one another, how you doing? Those things are very important, and that keeps the family going. And that will help the younger ones to see it, and they too can stick together. My father, Jefferson Weeks, was a quiet man, but a very direct person. He didn't sugarcoat what he had to tell you. If you did something that didn't go down well with him, he would let you know. He wasn't one to pretend, but he was a family man, strong family man, and he was one of those that he did not believe in using the word joke. For you to say something to someone and say, I was just joking. He said, that's not a joke. You meant to say it, but you didn't have the face, or you're not earnest enough to say what you want to say. So you put it through that and say you're joking. So he never liked to use that word joke. And that was him. But he was a good man. He was a good man. Nobody's perfect, but on the overall, I never heard my father raise his voice. Never. I never heard him raise his voice. But one thing he believed in, if he told you, if you did this, he never used the word whip or beat. He would tell you, if you did this, I would buck you. And trust me, if you did it, before that day is over, you will get that whipping that he promised. He will whip you, but he will let you know why you're getting that whipping, and he will whip you, and that's it. And you're not going to hear that discussion. So he wasn't, you know how sometimes some parents will quarrel with you, and every time you did something, when they're quarreling with you, they will bring that thing in the past. He was not like that. He whipped you and he was done. My mother would like to quarrel. She didn't whip, but when she quarreling at that, and then he didn't like, you know how some parents sometimes, when they're talking to you about something you did, and then they say, either your cousin Tita or your cousin Mary or your friend Mary doesn't do this. Oh, he never liked that. He always said, don't compare my child with anybody.